Hello, and welcome to Career Circle's workshop, Switching Careers, Your Roadmap to Success. I'm excited to have you as we dive into strategies for recognizing your transferable skills and building a career map that aligns with your goals. Whether you're switching industries or advancing in your current field, today's session will equip you with practical insights and interactive activities to help you get to the next step confidently. So before we begin, let's do a little housekeeping. We're currently recording this webinar to ensure accessibility for all of our participants. You can also enable closed captioning via your browser. We recommend using Google Chrome, where you can click on the three dots in the upper right-hand corner, click on Settings, and then Accessibility. You may refer to the screenshot in the presentation, reference a breakdown of instructions on how to access closed captioning on different browsers in the content section to your right, or reach out to one of our Career Circle employees in the tech support booth in the lobby to assist you. All of the resources that we discussed today and more can be located on the Content tab near the People and Discussion feed to your right. All resources in the recording will be emailed to you after the event. I'm going to repeat. All resources and the recording will be emailed to you after the event. Please make sure to watch until the end, as our amazing panelists have a wealth of knowledge to share. Now, we want to absolutely be able to hear from you. So before we get started with our introduction, here's a QR code for your survey. You can open it on your phone and share your feedback with us. If you miss it, no worries. We'll send the survey in our post-event email too. But if you want to give us your thoughts during the event, we'd love to hear from you as well. Now, with that being said, I get to be your amazing host. My name is Brittany Knowles. I am the Learning and Development Specialist here. I am a African-American female, 30-ish, with natural locks, as well as clear cat eyes, glasses, and a smile. And I'm going to introduce our panelists today, the esteemed, the amazing, the wonderful Mr. Ethan Parker.
Thanks very much, Brittany. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Parker. I'm the recruiting manager here at Career Circle. I am a white male in my early 30s. Very important, early 30s. Short brown hair and a smile today, wearing a gray quarter zip.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethan. We're super excited to start this conversation. Let's start off with the career mapping. How to identify your transferable skills. Let's hear about that, Ethan.
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, with a career map, just kind of defining it and giving everybody the shared language to get an understanding of what it is. So a career map is a tool that will help you to identify your long-term career goals and will help you determine how to, one, use the transferable skills that you have accrued in your professional or educational career up to this point. And then two, if you have recently obtained a certification or something along those lines, it'll kind of help you determine how to leverage those skills that you gain from that upskilling. We do have a couple resources in the content section today, so you can absolutely go ahead and click on that. We'll walk through the worksheet and a live exercise, and then we do have some additional content surrounding other tools that are newly available for career mapping. So be sure to stay tuned for that. So honing in on transferable skills here, there's two kinds of skills that are readily applicable to basically any and all job search. One of them is soft skills, and then the other is hard skills. So your soft skills are things that are more interpersonal, right? They are basically you interacting directly with another human being in a lot of ways. And then even beyond that, it sometimes takes the shape of you interacting with a larger group of people. So think kind of like a management experience, things like that. They are very, very important for overall career success and growth, but they're usually not quantifiable in a meaningful way unless you've had some like prior leadership experience where you can clearly define how many people you led, things like that. Examples of soft skills would be kind of problem solving, leadership, conflict resolution is another big one. They're basically the skills that you would leverage whenever, again, you find a situation in the workforce that requires you to engage with either a team or another person. Your hard skills are more kind of like the things that the nitty gritty of your day-to-day work. So think like software packages that you use in your job. Think along the lines of any additional productivity suites, so kind of like either the Google software suite or Microsoft Office, things along those lines. They're teachable in a lot of ways. So kind of the things that you would see for your upskilling, Google Data Analytics curriculum, you'll all be very familiar with SQL and R, things along those lines. These can usually be pretty tightly measured and quantified, and they require a little bit of technical proficiency as well. A couple examples here that we have on the presentation would be coding. So think, development languages, Python, Java, again, harkening to the Google Data Analytics curriculum. R is also a coding language that you would leverage here. And then leaning into that data analysis piece, tools like Excel, Python, SQL, those are all kind of like your hard skills. Other software packages that you may have used in previous careers would be any kind of customer resource management, or customer relationship management software. So think like a Salesforce, HubSpot, anything along those lines. In the career mapping exercise, we're going to take a look at trying to really extract your transferable skills from the work that you've done up to this point. And so as part of that exercise, it runs through 3 steps. Your first is a self-assessment where you're really taking the time to look through your prior body of work, gain a greater understanding and hopefully a better ability to articulate the skills that you've had up to this point. Then after your self-assessment, you want to take the time to really check in with yourself and talk about what your ideal career path looks like, right? So there's obviously like the long-term abstract goal of like, I'm an IT support. I want to be a technical support specialist. But then your next step from there, after you get that help desk experience, sometimes takes the shape of server administration, network administration. Sometimes it's just as simple as like climbing the ladder into a tier 2 support specialist. So it is very important to take the time to establish what your long-term goals are. And then lastly, of course, go ahead and start mapping. So you'll take the time to actually go step by step through each portion of your career and get an idea of what that career trajectory would look like. In the self-assessment section, just kind of going back to square one here, you'll want to take the time to write down your skills and qualifications. This can help a lot in a lot of ways, but most of all, get you really comfortable in your own skin, right? So it helps you to be able to articulate in both an interview setting and to yourself internally with your own like internal dialogue, what you are good at, the skills that you've acquired up to this point, and be able to speak to those more readily. If there is relevant volunteer experience or you've recently completed a certificate, this is also where you'll take some time to write that down. Oftentimes, usually when you're writing these down, it's kind of part of your resume building process, right? We have a lot of tools, obviously, to assist with that on platform, but as part of building your resume, naturally, you'll kind of write a lot of this information down. As we move to the second step, as you kind of begin to plot out your trajectory for your ideal career, you'll want to take the time to really ask yourself not just what your ideal career is, but realistically, what industries are you interested in working in? There's a lot of segmentation in the labor marketplace and a lot of very interesting things that you can tackle, but they all have slightly different aspects, right? Like technology is very different from healthcare, and the help desk professional sector that you would see in either is a little bit different. So like a help desk specialist for Meta, as an example, would be very different from a help desk specialist for Blue Cross Blue Shield. The roles require different software packages and sometimes industry-specific software packages that can help you to really develop a career, but more to the point, it will keep you within that industry for a longer period of time. So it's important to check in with yourself, think through what industries you're really interested in. And then once you've established all that, you can take the time to do some additional research. So you'll want to look at job descriptions, obviously, for the roles that you've determined would be well aligned. And then you'll also want to take some time to go through the skills that are required for the job you want, right? So as you're reviewing those job descriptions, in recruiting, we kind of call it a highlighter test, right? So you'll take the time to review the job description and then compare it against your current skill set or your current resume and say like, okay, based off this skill is matched for this, XYZ, right? And just kind of run down the line with that exercise. And that will help you, one, feel a little bit more prepared to tackle that, but two, identify areas that you don't feel that you have the required proficiency in and continue to pursue skills in those spaces. Last step here, of course, is starting mapping. So really breaking down your final goal by making short-term goals is very important to make larger scale goals digestible, right? And it will help to keep you motivated, helps to keep you really present throughout your career journey, as opposed to like essentially constantly not being satisfied with where you are, if that makes sense. Checking in on what resources you need to achieve those goals. So previously we talked about if there is a gap in the skills that you need for a position, you'll take the time to understand that and then pursue additional resources. A lot of the time there is like upskilling curriculum. There are additional opportunities that maybe you could start to leverage volunteer work. You could start to pursue hobby work. IT support's a great example of this, where you could either build computers in your spare time, start to get a little bit more proficient in building a home lab, start to branch into some cybersecurity work. There's a lot of different routes that you could take from a hobbying perspective that can help to prepare you from in a professional capacity. And then lastly, giving yourself deadlines. This is one of the more important parts. It's all well and good to establish these goals for yourself, but it makes it very difficult to keep yourself on a timeline if you are not giving yourself like, I want to have this done by this date so that I can be prepared for this thing by this date. It has a cascading effect if you don't kind of hold yourself accountable to that timeline. Simultaneously, right, it's important to be flexible and recognize that as long as you're doing a lot of the input, right, and your quality of input makes sense, your output sometimes is out of your control, right? So don't beat yourself up in the event that you're unable to hit a deadline for XYZ reason. Try to be aware of the things that are within your control and that are without your control. Moving on to networking and professional development here. So these are key tools really to ensure that you are setting yourself up for success in the long term when it comes to career mapping. Networking is obviously very important, making sure that you make a positive impression on the folks that you work with, as well as the folks that you might be learning from in an educational setting. Additionally, in the event that you are tackling your job search, tools like LinkedIn are very powerful digital networking tools. They can help a lot to give you inroads that you would not otherwise have if you make a positive impression on either an interviewer or somebody else that is, posting online. Some key questions to consider as you are going through that exercise. How can you land the job you're aiming for? So really looking at the long term, if there is a alternative route to just you applying to a job, going through a traditional interview process, you want to make sure that you're trying to consider all things possible, really. And so when it comes to that, taking some non-traditional routes via the path of networking can really help to expedite a successful job outcome for you. It can go a long way towards shortening the time for you to land your next role. Once you've kind of identified if there are alternative routes, what's your strategy to tackle those, right? So if I've identified like, hey, there are some folks that I think are really interesting players in the space and they work for companies that I'm interested in, how would I want to go about contacting them? How would I want to go about learning more about either the company or the skill set that they're touching? That strategy piece is very important because it will inform essentially the relationship that you form from a networking perspective. Conversely, if you're looking at it from a professional development perspective and you're kind of doing some research on upskilling opportunities or things along those lines, considering your timelines and how long it will take you to complete those upskilling curriculums will help to inform your readiness for job searching, essentially. This third piece kind of goes hand in hand with what your strategy is. So if there are any gaps to bridge, like any knowledge gaps, anything that you're currently unsure of that maybe you could get some additional feedback, you'll want to consider that as you are formulating your strategy to basically address those gaps. If you need to make any new connections on number 4 here, it is a very intimidating prospect at first, but what I can say safely is oftentimes there are very few people in the world that will not respond in good faith in the event that you are making an honest effort to try to just learn more about a given space, right? And you don't want to make it a transactional outreach, if that makes sense. You'll want to take the time to try to make it personal and say and basically kind of share a little bit of yourself and establish a longer term relationship with a person rather than saying like, hey, I need this job. What do you know about it? Can you get me in? Right? Because as a person on the other end of that, if you were putting yourself in their shoes, that's probably not something that you would like to respond to either. And so making those connections can be intimidating at first, but definitely take the time to look at shared spaces in the event that you're in a curriculum that you've recently completed. And then 2, take some time to look at professionals that are in the space that you're seeking. Take some time to examine like what they're posting on LinkedIn, engage with those posts organically so that they maybe start to see you passively, and it adds some context to when you initially contact them. And then lastly here, if there are any connections already in your network that would aid you in your search. A lot of folks, again, they take some time to excuse me, they take some time to really understand what their network looks like before jumping into it. And so if you have taken that time already, great. And it's possible that you may not have connections in your network that would help you with whatever you're going into next. It's equally possible, if not more possible, that they may know somebody that would help you in that job search. So when you think about leveraging the network that you have right now, don't think necessarily about this person can help me get into my job. Think, does this person know anyone that could also help me? You want to extend your network by the touch points that you already have, because it makes that networking prospect a lot less intimidating when you have somebody that can kind of help to bridge the gap for you. And then this last piece here, so really making your resume unique to you, it takes time to really hone in on like personal style in a lot of ways, especially when you're presenting yourself professionally. And so some of the key things that you'll want to consider when you are putting that together is really kind of trying to tailor your resume for the job that you're targeting. There are AI tools, of course, that make this significantly easier. You can kind of plug a job description into an AI and then basically and plug your resume in and say, like, can you tweak certain things to give me strong action verbs that make me a more appealing candidate for this position. That's one way that you can tackle it. Again, I do always recommend, of course, thoroughly examine the output that comes from those prompts, because it will take, sometimes it comes back and it doesn't always make sense if that, so you want to take the time to actually evaluate that and don't just plug it in blindly, because if it comes through, sometimes can make you seem less professional than you really are. Including personal and professional accomplishments. So, like volunteer experience, freelance work, anything relevant to the job. It would be thinking this in the long term of like, what have I done previously that would uniquely qualify me as a person for something? Because at the end of the day, recruiters see, hundreds, thousands of resumes. Things that help you stand out as a resume would be things that indicate like a level of passion or personal investment in the work, if that makes sense. Being concise, leaving off unnecessary details. Conversely, as you are thinking through how to make your resume personal, and this is again very nebulous, and I would highly recommend engaging with some career coaching resources, but you'll want to take the time to understand maybe what a hiring manager would be interested in, which would be really anything that's applicable to your professional career. And then conversely, what's not so interesting to read, right? And that's a very hard thing to define for a lot of folks. So I would highly recommend engaging with an external resource in these cases, but it's very important to leave off those unnecessary details. Lastly here, of course, check spelling and grammar. There are a lot of resumes that kind of get dinged before they even get considered because of a couple slight typos on it. So very important to take the time to be detail oriented, make sure that you engage a spell check, all that good stuff, and clean up a resume before you submit it for consideration.
All righty. We're super excited to go through our first of 2 activities today. Here we'll be doing an overview of Google's Career Dreamer. Please take a look at the resources under the Content tab, where you'll see information on how to access this great platform. Now with that, it's back to you, Ethan.
Perfect. And so jumping in here, Career Dreamer is actually a new experimental tool from our partners at Grow with Google. So this is kind of an exercise or a tool that can take you through that career mapping exercise entirely digitally, while simultaneously kind of giving you the sense that somebody's helping you along with it. It's very, very helpful. I've kind of gone through it personally a couple times now, but it can help you to uncover some hidden skills and then really show and coach you on how to present them confidently. A lot of folks, especially engaging in like the job search for the first time with a new career path, sometimes struggle with articulation of their skill sets. Oftentimes, Career Dreamer can give you some actionable words to speak, essentially, as you go to present those new skills that you've recently acquired. as far as how it works, it will help you to one, shape your professional story, right? So it'll ask for some basic information about your background, with the work that you have done up to this point, as well as anything that you may be interested in, any key skills that you may have recently acquired. It will then go through some career possibilities. So it'll take the time to kind of show you, like, hey, based off of what you've told us here, this is what's out there. And then from there, it'll take you the next step to really help you map it out and kind of give you a sense of what the trajectory to get to that point would be. And so for the first part of that, right, the shaping your career identity, when you're going through it for the first time, it'll ask you for some key information about your experiences. So it'll ask you for your job titles, the industries that you've worked in, and then some basic skills that go along with that. It'll also ask you if you have an educational background to go ahead and input that. This is where you'll also want to include any upskilling curriculums that you've completed recently. And then from there, the cool thing is, like I said, it's kind of like you have a digital assistant kind of helping you to articulate this. It'll give you like a high level sort of elevator speech that you can give back to folks, and kind of talk to your background up to this point, as well as your educational background. Really, really cool. And in the event that you find that you don't really like the identity statement that it's giving you, you can always change the experience and the criteria, and it'll kind of tweak it alongside you. It's a matter of like speaking style, right? So there are a couple ways to regenerate essentially the statement that they will give you, and then from there it will make it hopefully a little bit easier for you to find something that speaks well to your personal style of speech. Next step from there, once you've validated all that information and it gives you the kind of like that high level summarization of your career up to this point, it'll give you kind of the ability to start to explore some available roles that are relevant for someone with your background. So it'll give you the opportunity to browse some career paths, get a sense for what opportunities are, one, in the marketplace, and two, applicable to your background. And then from there, you can click on each of them individually and learn a little bit more about the role. So let's say you find something that maybe you didn't think of as particularly relevant to your job search up to this point. When you click on it, it'll give you some basic information about the job and kind of also help to bridge the gap in your understanding of why that might be relevant for you. Excuse me. Once you do click on that, you can then click on Jump to Gemini, and it'll give you some basic information on essentially what the job looks like in the marketplace. And then from there, you can actually start to look at job postings that are relevant for that position. So really cool stuff. And then last part of this, you'll map it out in Gemini. So from here, it'll give you some basic information and so some key prompts essentially to kind of give you tools to further engage with Google's AI resource Gemini. And then from there, you can have a back and forth essentially with the AI program. So it'll give you key prompts. The example given here is kind of to help me understand this role, what it entails, and then how it connects to my background. It'll give you a couple different suggestions of prompts that would be relevant for your search. And then from there, once you copy it to your, once you copy it, the continue to Gemini button will be clear for you to click on, and it'll take you straight there. You can paste it into Gemini, and then you can basically just engage with it as you would any other AI resource. Really, really cool, and helps to streamline a lot of the process of you having to like bounce between several different resources. One of the cooler things with Gemini as well, actually, is from this point, you're not necessarily locked into that career path, right? So once you get to the screen where it's asking you to continue to Gemini, you can always go back to Career Dreamer and then back up all the way to that career map and then do the same exact exercise with other jobs that are in that. So it's really cool. Gives you the ability to engage with a lot of different opportunities at once, if that makes sense. This Jump to Gemini piece, again, this is just kind of the example. So it'll give you a couple quick, it'll give you a couple quick prompts, and then we'll basically take you straight over to Gemini so that you can begin that dialogue with the AI.
All right, all right, all right. We are going to take a pause for the cause, and we're going to ask a few of the questions that have come through the chat. All right, just to break this up just a little bit. And let me also say, for those of you that have not gotten your questions answered or typed in yet, I want to encourage you, please type into the chat. What you have before you, everyone, is a subject area expert. Ethan is a guru in this space. And so please take this opportunity to glean from him all of your burning questions. If we have time, we will absolutely do our very best to be able to get to them. All right. And so, with that, first question is from Marcus. Does anyone have any suggestions on how to find in person networking instead of networking virtually in today's era of Zoom, Teams, and various other virtual platforms?
It's a great question. There are a couple different avenues that you can take. They're largely digitally led though. So you're on the right track of like seeing all the virtual environments and things like that. What I would encourage you to do is leverage basically social media, and then take the time to join groups that are local to your community, if that makes sense. So if there are groups in your space that are local to your community, you can join those. Oftentimes they'll share opportunities for networking events, things along those lines. Additionally, in the event that you are going through some kind of higher ed, or you know of higher ed opportunities happening near you, you can generally attend those. Won't be too much of a lift there. And then beyond the scope of that, you can engage with, what's the term I'm looking for? There are when you go for like volunteer experience, as an example, for like local community resources, you can use those as networking opportunities as well. It's kind of like you don't want to think of networking as like an event a lot of the time. It's kind of something that you're passively doing constantly, right? So in the event that you are getting yourself out there volunteering for your community, things like that, take some time to ask about your peers that are volunteering alongside you. Hey, what do you do for work? I'm just curious, trying to learn a little bit more about people alongside me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those suggestions, Ethan. I have another question from Samantha. Should you have all the skills requested on a job ad? If not, what is the acceptable percentage of skills you should have to be able to apply?
That's a great question. There's going to be variance in this. A lot of the time, it will depend a lot on the employer. However, I would say it's not always strictly necessary to have all of the skills. Oftentimes, and sometimes it can be like listed in preferred skills versus like pure qualifications, right, for a position. In the event that you don't have all of like the preferred skills for a position, I would say you're more than likely good to apply, as long as you satisfy like the core qualifications. Preferred skills, where they would denote that, would be like areas that they are willing to train most of the time. And more than anything, especially as the years go on and we get more and more integrated with different technology solutions, a lot of the times employers are looking for people that are a cultural fit, that they feel that they can like get to the right place, that satisfies those core qualifications, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, it will get you may subject yourself to more rejections, but getting yourself out there for more opportunity will expedite your outcomes either way. So I would encourage you, in the event that you satisfy core qualifications but don't satisfy all of the preferred qualifications, definitely still apply. If you're asking for a percentage, I would say you want to meet, on average, for the most part, and again, this is very general advice, will be very different from employer to employer, but I would say you want to average at least 70 to 80% of those skills qualifications met before you apply for a position.
Absolutely. We have another question from Michael. Um, when changing careers, I just acquired my CompTIA A plus and Google support certifications. After a month of looking, it seems like every job will say entry level and then requires 5+ years of experience. How do I gain work experience when employers seem to not want to train?
It's a great question, and I definitely, first of all, congratulations on completing the certifications. Really impressive achievement. Obviously, not everybody gets that point. The thing is, a lot of the time there will be talent that is equally available, if that makes sense. So there'll be other peers alongside you that will have kind of a similar level of qualifications, and a lot of the time, even though those roles still say like 5+ years of experience and they are described as entry level, I would encourage most folks to apply for those regardless. Again, worst case, they say no, right? Um, a lot of the time, they will just like copy paste the job description and just kind of put it out there. Um, More to the point, I would encourage, in the event that you are trying to continue to keep those skills sharp prior to your job search, get involved with any kind of hobby project that will continue to sharpen those skills and hone those skills over time. For IT support, as an example, there are a lot of resources detailing like how to set up a home lab, where you can begin to kind of like learn more about networking solutions, things like that. And it's basically a personal station at home where you can kind of just continue to tinker, right, and keep that skill set sharp. In the event that it's hardware based, you can always, take apart like a test bench, continue to put it together, things like that. But more to the point, over time with software, you can get more proficiency with operating systems like Linux and things along those lines to start doing more network based iteration and like hands-on training for yourself. Lots of great resources online that kind of detail that process. I would highly recommend checking out YouTube. And then honestly, you could Google a lot of this, or even engage AI resources for just kind of some basic information on how to get started with building a home lab. Conversely, this would apply for other certificate paths as well. For other folks where a portfolio would be relevant, definitely take the time to continue to engage with your portfolio, keep that professional skill set sharp. The more hobbyist work that aligns with your professional career, the faster you will see an outcome when it comes to finding an opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ethan, for answering those questions. Y'all keep those questions coming. We're going to move into our second activity. We've got a career mapping worksheet listed in the content tab. We'll be sending all of these resources in our post-event email. But if you'd like to follow along, feel free to download it now. Ethan, I'm going to send it back over to you.
Wonderful. So the career mapping worksheet, it's kind of a more manual version of the Career Dreamer exercise, but you can actually use it in tandem with the Career Dreamer exercise to have it basically in a tangible space that you can continue to refer to over time. So you can always continue to check back on this and then essentially leverage it to see basically how we're doing, right, against the long-term career map that you laid out initially. As you're going through this, similarly to what we laid out previously, you want to ask yourself, what your hard and soft skills are, right? Just write those out, will be really helpful from there. And then what other careers you can consider with the skills that you have in hand. That's the more important part. Oftentimes we find that, and this is where Career Dreamer can be very helpful, is you have a limited scope of like what titles are immediately applicable to your job search. Google searches, research, and then using tools like Career Dreamer can be very helpful for you to kind of expand scope on what may be out there that you would be uniquely qualified for. You can see here as we're going through it, transferable skills, we've listed several here, and then related careers, again, we've listed those out. It's important to take the time to fill it out, mostly because it helps you with retention and like keeping it in your head at any given time. But overall, it will also help to be able to refer to it as a resource as you continue to develop in your career. And so here's an example of us basically going through the worksheet. You can see we'll start at the industry level and then kind of break it down to what these positions look like over time, right? So that level 1 position, that'll be kind of like your 0 to 3 years, right? Like you're just getting your foot in the door. You get a greater understanding of the role itself. Level 2 will kind of be like your 3 to 5. Level 3, 5 to 7, and then level 4, 7 years plus, right? So this is really mapping out over the long term, like, hey, what would I be qualified for as time goes on? As far as the industry alignment goes, that's where, again, you want to take the time to really research what you're most passionate about or most interested in. I can tell you safely that there are opportunities available in almost each and every sector. It's very important to align yourself from a high level at the top end of like, what industries am I interested in so that I can continue to specialize in them? Because the more experience you gain in a given industry, the easier it is to get that next step in that industry, right? Again, we used the healthcare example previously. There are specific software packages and things that you will gain exposure to that you would not in other industries. And it makes you more uniquely qualified for a higher level role, especially in today's day and age where a lot of employers are offering specialized trainings to customize tools. It makes you very, very uniquely qualified for higher level positions. As far as like going through the activity itself, you want to really take the time to ask yourself, what are the steps that I need to take in order to land that dream job, right? So like you can identify the positions all day, But in the event that you are at level 1 right now and you want to identify, how do I get to level 2? Take the time to do a couple searches, do some research, say like, hey, what are some things that we'll use IT support as the example. What are some things that a tier 2 support technician would use as opposed to a tier 1? And then learning a little bit more about those technologies, things like that you might leverage that would uniquely qualify a tier 2 role, you can then begin the process of addressing that gap, right? So either seeking out additional upskilling, taking some time to learn more or tinker more with any kind of independent hobbyist work, just to gain some proficiency with it. I myself, as an example, I've done a lot of work here, obviously, as the recruiting manager with Career Circle. However, over time, I've completed the Google Data Analytics cert. I've learned a lot more about data management strategies and data cleaning, and I now routinely use tools like high-level Excel, Power Query, and then additionally some work on the data visualization side with Tableau. So there are things, even in the event that you are not going to, or that you're not going to directly leverage those systems in the future, that upskilling, things like that, will benefit you indirectly as you go through your career path regardless. So it's always helpful to take the time to identify those gaps and really assess those skills that you may be missing. This last piece here on considering pivoting. There are a lot of times where folks start off and they don't, or they have kind of a career map laid out or a trajectory in mind, but a couple years in, you might recognize like, oh, I don't really actually like this industry that much, or I don't really like this career path directly that much. Again, we'll use IT support as the example. You can work in IT support for a couple years and learn more about the space holistically, and then start to decide like, do I want to work more on the networking side, or do I want to work more on like the system admin side? There's a lot of different ways to tackle a job search, and so it's very important as time goes on to routinely check in with yourself, check in on your career map, and assess whether or not you want to go ahead and make that change. Lots of opportunities to pivot can be held within your own organization a lot of the time. So as you are going through that, you can also continue to loop in like your leadership staff and say like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Again, circling back to that networking piece. In the event that you don't, your leader doesn't have the access to that now, it's likely that they can get you connected to the person that may be able to point you in the right direction. So again, just really assessing where you want to be long-term repeatedly over time will help you a lot as you build out your career map and your overall career journey. So utilizing your resources, we talked a lot today about the different things that are available to you and what you can start to leverage as you build out that career map. Of course, the career mapping worksheet, definitely use that as a primary resource. Take the time to write everything out in that. It can be really helpful to refer to over time and make edits to, again, in the interest of pivoting. If there are things that interest you more or less as you learn more about the field, it's a really great tool to be able to basically course correct that over time. We do have information surrounding how to fully complete a resume or tailor it to a specific opportunity. Additionally, we have an application tracker, which is a great primary resource to use in your job search. Just a great way to track all of the opportunities that you have applied to and basically mark, where they're at in the process. And then if you have recently completed a certificate, we do have some basic resource information in there as well. So definitely check that out. Of course, we also talked about Career Dreamer. I would highly recommend engaging with that at a high level. It's very helpful and can give you, again, more exposure immediately to things that you might not have seen. I would say it is a tool that you could definitely use on the front end. I would encourage folks to use it in tandem with a physical resource. So kind of like if you were to connect with a career coach, go ahead and bring to them like, hey, I actually went through Career Dreamer. Here's some basic information that I got. What do you think of these career paths? It can be really helpful to have another person to kind of bounce that off of, because while AI is a very useful tool, sometimes it can give you output that isn't entirely applicable. So great to get the gut check. Several things to remember here. You'll want to make sure that you have specific and measurable goals. Stay positive is the biggest thing. It is a challenging market, and it's a challenging time to be a job seeker generally. It's very important to not beat yourself up and kind of get down on yourself as time goes on. It's a matter of time with really everything, is what I say. And so as you get more advanced in your job search, you've had several interviews. If they haven't panned out, try not to beat yourself up too much about it. It's important to be realistic about the marketplace and what you're noticing in it, but also try not to let it define the job search too heavily, because sometimes what can happen is it puts a damper on the job search unnecessarily, and then it comes through in interviews that you would have in the future. Pairing your goals with action is very important. Of course, you want to make sure that you are measuring your outcomes as best as possible and taking the steps to essentially drive your career forward wherever you can. Lastly, remaining flexible. It's the biggest thing I would say, especially as you begin to build out the career map. It's really, really important to have a flexible mind and understand that just because I have a definition of what the long term map for this may look like, it might look a little bit different based off of my transferable skills, based off of things that I am uniquely qualified for. So that flexibility is very important, especially in the early stages of building that career map.
Awesome. So it is time. It is time. It is time to hear from the master himself. All right. Michael said, how do you combat all the scams search on LinkedIn? I get some person by a fly by night school offering me classes to improve my career daily, or companies who put fake job listings just to collect resumes,
Mm-hmm.
or the send you a check scam, etc. So the overall question is, how do you combat thing? And there were some that were mentioned, but are there any in your profession that you've seen that maybe we should be aware of some of the scams?
Those are the higher level ones for sure. Definitely like resume collection, personal information collection to engage in like essentially targeted campaigns to try to collect your information or check scams or things along those lines. That's the most dangerous one that I've seen professionally. Um, I will say it's difficult to combat in the sense of like eliminating it, right? Unfortunately, the world that we live in, there's a lot of ability for people who do not mean well to kind of try to capitalize on folks who are engaging in their job search in good faith. What I will say is it's very important to keep your head on a swivel, right? If something doesn't smell right, so to speak, I would encourage a healthy level of skepticism. Really take the time to try to understand, hey, is this a legitimate thing? Like, what are the steps behind it, especially as you're getting direct messages from folks? If it doesn't make a lot of sense to you, why you would be reached out to for something along the, or whatever opportunity that is being presented to you, or if it is something that maybe there's a lot of grammatical issues or people like engaging with you in verbiage that doesn't really make sense, it's very likely that there is a scam. So it's just important to keep your head on a swivel, watch out for it, and mitigate it as best as you can. In the event that you are, running into things directly, I would highly encourage getting a second set of eyes on it, get a second opinion. That way, it's not just you trying to read, hey, is this a scam, essentially. It's very helpful to have the secondary human perspective a lot of the time with like fresh eyes, so to speak.
And Ethan, if I can add this as well, because that literally just happened to me. The way that I was able to determine that it was a scam. Now, mind you, now I have an amazing job. I'm not looking for anything. This person just reached out to me on in a cold manner, like just don't know how they got my information. I Googled the company, Googled the tried to figure out information about that particular person because it did not feel real and it felt like a scam. And so, absolutely, and what you just said, Ethan, about those typos and grammatical errors are dead giveaways. So, thank you so much for that. I absolutely agree wholeheartedly with that advice. I have another question from Don. Don said, would it be fair to say that the Google Career Dreamer is a replacement for a human career coach, or perhaps to be used alongside a career coach to triangulate their advice?
It's a great question. I would say I would not encourage using it as a replacement, if that makes sense. I would say it's most efficient as a tool to be used in tandem with a career coach. Again, I think I mentioned this previously, but it's very helpful to have somebody kind of give you a gut check on like, oh, this is something that you would be qualified for, or this is maybe not something that I would put you in front of, but I can see how it would get you there. It's more informative than anything, I would say, to kind of leverage in your job search and present those opportunities to someone who may be able to kind of help guide you in the right direction for them. But it is a great question. I wouldn't use it as a primary replacement, no.
Absolutely. The next question, would you ever recommend freelance work during a career gap? And in what circumstances might you utilize that?
That's a great question. Freelance work is a great way to develop professional experience, especially if it contributes to a portfolio. I would recommend it if you have the avenues for it. There are a lot of ways to do it online now. You can go through Fiverr, other recommended websites that would be places where essentially people can solicit you for your services, things like that. Um, I think freelance work is quantifiable in a lot of ways that are unexpected when it comes to your job search. So when you are doing it, take the time, especially as you're outlining it on your resume, to detail the projects that you completed and try to get an understanding from your client of how it impacted their business. That last part is what will be much more important in like qualifying you for opportunities, because it gives hiring managers or recruiters an ability of how you can come in and impact their business from day one, so to speak.
Absolutely. The next question I have is, what are some ways I can really exemplify my soft skills as my time as a stay-at-home parent trying to plan out my career?
That's a great question, and it actually bleeds really well into some Career Dreamer exercises that you can run. Um, Actually, on Career Dreamer, you can specify that you were a caregiver or stay-at-home parent, and it will give you some key skills that that it will extract essentially from that experience. In the event that you're having a difficult time, extracting those skills yourself. As far as making those skills come up front and center from a soft skills perspective, I think it is very important in those cases to leverage networking as much as possible. It helps a lot to have a person to associate to experience, as opposed to just looking at it on paper. Uh, but in the event that that's less of an option for you, the way that I would flesh that out a little bit more is try to quantify experiences within your resume where soft skills made a direct impact on some project or some element of your work that you were supporting with an organization. If it's volunteer work as well, that's a great way to extrapolate or to kind of highlight that on a resume. Let's say that you were coordinating at a high level, a couple different teams to do neighborhood cleanups, things along those lines. It helps to be able to quantify it in that way. But yeah, from a paper perspective, I would say soft skills can be a little bit more difficult to just like see at a high level. It's more about where they're positioned, if that makes sense, and then additionally the prevalence of them. So like you want to make sure that you include them in a skills summary very early on in the resume. That way the recruiter can quickly see them. You'll want to make sure that in the experience, again, you quantify how those soft skills impacted your work directly. That will help at least bridge the gap to kind of get you in the door to let those soft skills shine. Soft skills shine in an interview context.
Try to say that 3 times fast. So Tori asked, is following up with the recruiting manager via email or phone call still a valid way to follow up on an application?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say oftentimes in the event that you have that contact information, it's recommended in a lot of capacities. Post-interview etiquette, it can vary for sure, but oftentimes if we have that information in hand, it's great within like a 48-hour time period just to send a quick follow-up. I would say, post-interview immediately, just send a quick thank you note. Saying thank them for the time, all that good stuff. If it was a recruiter that set you up for the opportunity, thank the recruiter for their engagement, ask if there are any follow-up steps or actions required from them. And then, once that, a couple day period lapses, you can definitely check back in with them, just see if they have any update for you. There's no harm in that at all.
Absolutely. Elijah asked, I'm switching career fields. Should I be tweaking my resume for every position? Also, should I include my personal objects or projects into the cover letter? Additional information to show the use of those technical skills I haven't had the opportunity to use at a job.
Oh, okay. I thought I called for a second. Yeah.
If
Yes.
you need me to re-say it or restate the question, I absolutely can.
Just so I make sure I answer it completely. Yes.
No worries. I got you. I got a little mixed as I was reading through it. Okay. So it says, I'm switching career fields. Should I be tweaking my resume for every position? Also, should I include my personal projects in the career letter, additional information to show the use of those technical skills I haven't had the opportunity to use at a job?
Yes. Okay. Great questions. The tailoring your resume for every position, it is daunting, and I don't always recommend it. Sometimes can become more of a psychological barrier or something that prevents you actively from applying to jobs. I would say in the event that your resume is like greater than 80% aligned, I would go ahead and apply. I would maybe scale that up to 90% in some cases, especially if it is like a larger scale tech firm or something along those lines. Your applicant tracking systems will be a little bit more rigorous in those cases. It is in the event that it is, I'll say it this way. In the event it's a position that you feel very passionately about, and it's something that you would be very interested in doing, and it's something that an organization you really want to work with, as opposed to, just basically you getting applications out, I would highly recommend tailoring it in those cases. Otherwise, as long as your skills, the skills listed on your resume are aligned, then I would go ahead and you don't have to tailor it quite so often. Again, I would recommend, in the event that you are tailoring, that's a great usage of AI tools. It can be very helpful just to kind of give you a starting point and kind of tweak things. And more to the point, it will help you with that like level of comparison. Repeat the latter part of that question for me. I got lost in the sauce there a little bit.
No worries whatsoever. And I have a pressing question after this one.
Okay.
And so did you just want me to read the last portion of the question or the
Just the
full
last
question
portion,
again?
yeah.
Okay. So also, should I include my personal projects in the cover letter, additional information to show the use of those technical skills I haven't had the opportunity to use at a job? So if I can just add this little context, I believe the question is asking or saying that this person does not necessarily have professional experience in a particular space, but may have been able to exhibit some of those hard skills in a project or something that they've done. And so basically, getting some insight into how to be able to demonstrate their technical ability, even if they don't have professional experience in that space.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yes, there is definitely value in providing that information either on the cover letter or within a resume itself. You can list out completed projects as kind of like tangible experience with like short list of bullets of the work that you did within that project. It essentially will help you'll want to list it more or less as like professional work experience, if that makes sense. So when you think of your resume structurally, it'll be like skills, education, and then kind of like it's usually your work experience after that. In between those two sections, but right before your work experience, include like project-based experience, and then you can detail some of the projects that you completed either as part of a curriculum or to kind of continue to develop your skills over time. From a cover letter perspective, absolutely, that's usually where you have more space to really like talk about the work that you completed and talk about how it's directly relevant to the role. I will say cover letters, it's kind of hit or miss on whether or not they actually end up getting read by a person sometimes, but in the event that you again are passionate about a position and you want to include the cover letter for that, definitely do so. It can help to make your application stand out.
Ethan,
yeah, I think
this question, I'm so sorry because I'm looking at the time and I want to make sure, because we had a couple of people that were really trying to draw attention to this question. And so the question is it safe to apply through Career Circle directly, or is it recommended to apply via the company website?
It's absolutely safe to apply through Career Circle directly. The way that we have it set up, it basically feeds directly into any partner organizations' applicant tracking systems, and so there's no barrier there as far as that goes. Additionally, if you are applying to opportunities directly and you're working with a career coach or a recruiter, in a lot of cases you can flag your application to the person that you're working with on our team, and then we can go ahead and go the next step and try to expedite your application or kind of like bump it to the front of the resume pile, if that makes sense. And we'll, additionally, most of the time, especially if you're working directly with a recruiter, we'll do a little bit of advocacy on the back end to kind of draw parallels from the job description to your work experience. So would highly recommend, if you find an opportunity that you're interested in Career Circle, don't hesitate. Go ahead and apply to it.
Thank you so much. Ethan, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
I just saw it. It kept coming up in the chat. So I wanted to make sure before anybody left that you all know that it is safe for you to apply directly through Career Circle. All right. And so next question from Vince. To what extent is taking a step down job offer worth it? I'm looking for a data analyst role after completing the Google Data Analytics certificate, but I'm finding it difficult to land entry or junior level. Is there a point that starts, such as a data entry clerk, is worth it to gain skills and pivot, or would it set me back?
It's a great question. I'll preface this by saying it will be different from person to person in a lot of ways, and some of this has to be quantified by like yourself individually, but by and large, in the event that you are interested in stepping into the career path long term, it is absolutely worth it to take a step back and gain that entry level experience. It will help you a lot with pivoting. This is something that comes up very often in like coaching sessions and some entry or initial engagements that we have with candidates. Um, the folks that are comfortable with taking that step back, it helps to expedite them getting into the field and starting to leverage those skills, like regardless, right? So you, at the bare minimum, you're accruing professional experience. I recognize it may not be ideal immediately, but that's kind of part of the career mapping exercise, right? Like if you identify that, the entry level opportunities that are, aligned to directly with your career path aren't something that you're necessarily qualified for, it's zooming out a little bit further and saying like, okay, what's the step right before that I can get into? So yes, absolutely. I would say it is worth it from an experience perspective if you have an interest in getting into the space as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. And it looks like we might have time for two more questions. Jeff asked, um, how would you go about determining a career trajectory if you are not certain where you want to be within the next 5 years because you have a wealth of knowledge and experience in diverse skill sets, interests, and are able to pivot easily and pick up things rather easily? How do
Hmm.
you transition this to applying to jobs strategically and practically?
It's a great question. And again, this will vary from person to person. If I'm in your shoes and I'm going through the exercise right now, I probably would take time to zoom out from the actual position itself, right? If we're not sure of necessarily where we want to land from a career standpoint, and take the time to heavily consider the industry that I would want to work in. So target some companies that you're very interested in working in. Take some time to try to understand the structure of the organization and how you would approach it, holistically. And then from there, try to network with the folks that you that are kind of like key players in the space, if that makes sense. Either folks that are currently doing the jobs that you're interested in, or folks that are like adjacent to the department, things along those lines. That can kind of help to give you more of a tighter funnel or a tighter understanding, I guess, of the kind of work that you would be doing and what you might be more interested in. That way, you can begin the mapping exercise in earnest of the actual like position details itself.
Absolutely. And our last question, or potentially second to the last question, depending on how fast we're able to get through this one. For hard skills recently acquired through Google Professional Career Certificates, what are the best platforms to showcase your portfolio to prospective employers? For instance, Google Data Analyst, Kaggle, for Google UX, Design, Squarespace, etc. Opinion, the value for networking.
It's a great set of questions. The platforms will vary heavily for curriculum to curriculum. I would say the ones that you've outlined there are great. They're additionally for data analytics or automation with Python. Of course, there's GitHub where you can publish some things that you've done with various software packages. It is for like design and visual heavy thinking, like digital marketing, UX design. You'll want to use a website of some kind. Squarespace is a great example. There are a couple other key ones I would recommend researching, and oftentimes you can um, do this by just like searching like competitors to whatever portfolio system, and it'll give you like a greater understanding of what's out there. I would say the best advice that I can give when it comes to putting together a portfolio is use the technology that is, one, easiest for you to get the work into, and two, makes the most sense from like a pure upload perspective. So if it's easier for you to get the work in there and it shortens your time towards like constructing that portfolio and making it like visually appealing or readily accessible, that's the best solution for you, if that makes sense. When it comes to putting that on your resume, I do want to highlight, definitely make sure that you don't just put up the straight up link. Embed it in text. That way it doesn't get kicked out by any applicant tracking systems. The latter part of that, especially in today's day and age, there's a lot of value in networking. It's difficult, and it is intimidating, as we've highlighted previously, but you will see much higher returns on investment a lot of the time when it comes to activity and your job search by engaging in networking actively.
Ethan, I just have to say, you are so amazing. Thank you so much. You have spent an hour giving us these nuggets of wisdom on how to go about doing things, and the way that you've asked these questions organically. I cannot thank you enough. And I know that the audience is so appreciative of you sharing of your knowledge. And we thank you, audience, for being here. Please stay until the end. I have some important information that I want to share with you. We'll be sending you this post event email, which will include the recording, as well as all of the resources we spoke about during today's call. You can access our event survey by using this QR code or locating it in the email. Make sure to like and follow us on our socials to stay up to date on all platform updates. Once again, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you all leave here today feeling empowered and ready to map your career with confidence. I know I do after listening to Ethan. We've had so much fun today. Please join us for our upcoming webinar. Our next one is going to be June the 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can view all of our events and register on careercircle.com/events. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.